This week's Old Testament reading starts with the wonderful story of Balak, Balaam, and his donkey. Didn't I preach a sermon about the donkey last fall? So I won't dwell on it. But for everyone who thought that the book of Numbers was just the record of a census and maybe also a bunch of rules, this story is a fine example of the Lord God working through nature, the donkey, to make a point, and using a prophet who isn't part of the people of God to do God's will. Balaam, the prophet I mentioned, is almost as stubborn as his donkey, but I'll let you see that for yourself. I do, however, want to call attention to the last of Balaam's 4 oracles. Before King Balak is rid of him, the prophet says this: I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star shall come out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. Were those the words that set some magi, Persian astrologer priests, on the road to Bethlehem following a star? While Balaam is busy speaking blessings on the Hebrew people, much to King Balak's annoyance, some of the Hebrew men start marrying Moabite women and worshiping the god of the Moabites, Baal of Peor. Somehow, over the years, that got blamed on Balaam. The poor guy has been blessing the Hebrew people, but you will find in the book of Revelation that Balaam is blamed for this idolatry. First, his donkey gives him trouble, then later centuries blame him for the people's idolatry. Poor guy couldn't catch a break. Most of the rest of the week's reading, well, it involves more ceremonies and battles, as well as a summary of the whole Exodus adventure before we start on Deuteronomy. But I hope you'll notice one more shining moment in our reading on Wednesday: the story of the daughters of Zelophehad. In a very patriarchal age, they win a court fight that establishes certain rights for women. Now, it isn't much, and you may not find it as significant as I do, but I remember that the Women's Center at my seminary had one wall covered in a mural, The Daughters of Zelophehad. For women undertaking theological education in the 1970s, the story of these sisters gave them hope. And just think, next week, we start Deuteronomy.